Welcome back, I'm the Casual DM. This is a series where I break down all of the different D&D classes, not from the player's side, but from the Dungeon Master's perspective. We'll talk about class fantasy, gameplay mechanics you need to watch out for, story hooks, and what's the best way to make your players feel like the heroes they signed up to be. So whether you're running your first campaign or your 50th, let's talk about how to run better D&D campaigns. And with all of that being said, it's time to talk about the most boisterous of the bunch, the most bonkers of all, the Barbarians. Because Barbarians are just badasses, can't help it. They are just really cool classes because they can be handled in so many different ways. Whether you're going with the classic of Conan the Barbarian-esque, which we'll get into later, to really almost a completely different vibe and a different take, but again, we'll get into that later. But before we can do all of this, it's time to talk about section 1. Why do people choose to be barbarians? So when a player picks to be a barbarian, they are signing up for the class fantasy around raw. And what I mean by this is it could be raw emotion, raw instinct, or raw physical damage. It is all around those key ideas. And boy, oh boy, does the class summarize it perfectly. Because a barbarian isn't just about being a frontline damage dealer, right? Like, they can be, sure, but in reality, it's more along the lines of they want to be the last one standing. They want to be the one that is the central pillar in combat, the guiding light, the person who makes sure that the party survives to fight another day. That is what the barbarian is, by punching the enemies so hard into the ground that they turn to dust. Barbarians want to be hard to kill, but they also want to put the fear into their enemies just from how savage they can be. And again, wanting to be that last person standing because they're all about momentum, right? Barbarians can take a minute to get going, but once they get going, they are very hard to stop. Because once that rage just is activated, oh boy, yeah, good luck with stopping that. Because, yeah, you're gonna need to end up throwing basically an army at them, really. But, you know, that's where we can start talking and planning out the mechanics. Because, yeah, they are an unstoppable force. Let's talk about things that we need to be prepared for, and if we really do need to throw that immovable object at them. Barbarians change up combat math in such a real way, it's crazy. Like, first of all, the rage. We know it, we love it, it's beautiful, it's incredible. It's also, oh boy, a lot to deal with. Being able to just outright resist so many types of damage can be just kind of panic-inducing as a dungeon master. I've seen barbarians absorb damage that was built around an entire party, just as a character. Like, that's just kind of mad. So we do need to expect that our combat encounters are going to last a fair bit longer than normal when having to deal with barbarians. Or shorter. Either way, one person is getting stomped, more often than not, it's going to be our mobs, right? Our villains are going to be the ones in the dirt when we're having to deal with a barbarian. It's going to be hard to take them down. But we do have a few opportunities as Dungeon Masters. First of all, Reckless Attack, great mechanic, really fun, and we need to really capitalize on it because it's the barbarian choosing to be hit. They're offering themselves up as a target. It's the taunt. And in terms of mechanics, we should be going after the barbarian when they offer this taunt. That is the whole point of the class. Yes, it's a trap. Yes, it's because the barbarian is going to be able to handle pretty much anything that we throw at them, but we still should be going after them when they offer this taunt because that's the whole point of the mechanic. It's meant to be fun. This is what our barbarian player wants. They want us to go after them. They want us to charge at them. And that is the fun of it. You have a player that actively wants to be hit. Go in for that hit. Go in for that charge. Go for them. Hit them. Smash them in the face. Because at the end of the day, they've got such a high HP, such a high durability, that damage is not what they're worried about. No, they can shrug off most types of damage like it is nothing. And that's what we should be giving to our barbarian players. Give them that damage, give them that firepower, give them that pain because they can handle it, they can take it like a champ. But what we can do as dungeon masters to plan and give them something to actually worry about: status effects, conditions, exhaustion. Those are mechanics that we as dungeon masters can throw into our combat encounters to really put the fear back into the barbarian when it is appropriate. This is the character that is meant to not be afraid of damage because they are afraid of other things. And I'm not saying that we need to custom tailor status effects and make these combat encounters always deliver exhaustion and everything. No, but what I am saying is that when we need to build our encounters around a barbarian and their mechanics, we don't need to just try and circumvent what they can do. We just need to plan what we can do accordingly. And that's the real question at the end of the day. What can we do? Because barbarians not only change up the game mechanics-wise, but they also severely change up our worlds in the big narrative sense. Because barbarians offer the question of, where does civilization end? What does the term savage mean? And really, what does culture look like? Barbarians aren't uncivilized. If anything, they are some of the most deeply rooted classes of them all in tradition and other senses. Like, we always would consider the barbarian, oh, they're the savage, right? They're walking around in a loincloth, they've got a big heavy weapon, and they're all about just smashing things up. But here's the thing. You take your barbarian, put them in the city, sure, that's what society will end up considering them. Take that same barbarian, put them in that tribe, and learn about tribal politics and what that tribe represents, what that tribe's culture is all about, what that tribe's ancestral spirits are all about, their totems, their rituals. There is so much depth that can be added in through a barbarian, whether it being bloodlines, curses, all of that. Our barbarians open up that gate to a sense of culture that isn't often seen in D&D games, and so often just cast to the wayside because we can't help but think of them as these strong brutes. And sometimes that is the case. Sometimes our players do want that. But when our players pick to be barbarians, we should at least come up with some clan-like culture around the barbarian tribes. Because when you do, it really adds in that emphasis, that beauty into the scenarios where civilized society will underestimate the barbarian, and the barbarian lets them, because they can prove them wrong pretty much at any point, but they don't. They let civilized society think that they are being the smart ones. Let them think that they are the ones who understand the world, when in reality the barbarian clans understand so much more about the way the world works, about the way the world is meant to be, that there is a reason they haven't chosen to join society and modern civilizations. And it's because, at the end of the day, not everyone wants that. Not everyone needs that. And a barbarian is the perfect linchpin in our storytelling to show off those moments and show the advantages to both sides. Our barbarian is the perfect conduit to that type of story and narrative role-playing, and I love them for that. I always love having a barbarian who is so much smarter than they put on. Even if they don't have high intelligence, they can still deliver great impact. So it's always fun when our players want to have that extra barbarism thrown into the campaigns. But if you haven't had much experience with barbarians, or at least can only think of a couple, let's run through just a couple of classic pop culture barbarians that we can always think about. First of all, Conan the Barbarian. They are classic. They are the barbarian. Stronger than anything, able to take down horrifically large monsters. They are the cultural icon. When you think of barbarian and you look up barbarian art, you will see Conan. Or, if you are a Fallout fan, Grognak the Barbarian. I know Grognak is inspired by Conan. That's how you can judge the two. So if you don't know who Conan the Barbarian is, but do know Fallout, yeah, he is inspired by Conan. They are basically one and the same. But aside from that whole area of pop culture, we also have Beowulf if you ended up watching the film for Beowulf, that's a good idea. If not, I recommend reading the story of Beowulf because it's actually really good. Very fun, very classic mythology going on there. But I guess to take it out of just some levels, Kratos from God of War is another great example of Barbarian. Specifically Kratos in the more recent renditions of it all, God of War Ragnarok and everything. Because yeah, it's the stoicism, the calm, the storm that dwells inside that is really being shielded by just a very thin layer of ice. And when you end up angering him, oh boy.
I warned you.
Finally.
Put into the ground so hard. It's beautiful. Again, Marvel example, the Hulk is the barbarian of the party. Like, he's big, he's green, he's mean, he's gonna make a scene. He might end up regretting his choices once he's ended up going all Hulk mode on everything, but yeah, it's effective. But that's all examples of when they go barbarian, when they let out the beast, when they let loose. But if you also want just a good idea of classic barbarian inspiration, then I would highly recommend just learning about Vikings, because they are the history in our world that inspired the idea of the barbarian. They weren't necessarily barbarians themselves. Heck, they were actually more civilized than pretty much everyone that ever encountered them. When you learn about what they actually could do, their cultures, their societies, yes, they did some horrific things being Vikings, but when you actually learn what they were capable of and what they were doing back home, it is a perfect example of society underestimating the quote-unquote savages of the world. So definitely learn about some Viking culture if you have a barbarian in your party at a minimum. This will help set expectations and tone at the table, being able to just understand where the class's mythology comes from. But now it's time to talk about ways to make barbarians feel incredible in our worlds. It's time to design moments that really lend to physicality mattering. It's all about making strong, impactful moments in our campaign worlds where the barbarian strength is really given center stage. And really, it's all about letting the barbarian take charge. It's giving them an impossibly strong moment, whether it being an obstacle that should not be capable of being moved. Let the barbarian rage, let them throw in all of their strength, and let them move mountains by how strong they can be. Also, situations where they are able to withstand the waves. Give them a chokehold where they need to hold it down. Give them a choke point, have them stand on the staircase, just holding back a tidal wave of enemies. That is such a beautiful moment for the class. It's also giving them just really difficult checks that are all about showing off their strength. It's enduring the unendurable. It's pain, poisons, just devastation that would absolutely destroy any other class, but the barbarian is standing firm in its wake. It's the truly unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. A barbarian is that immovable object, and they aren't going to blink, which means that unstoppable force has to crack and break. And when it does, our barbarian players are going to just love it. So it's all about giving them those moments where they're just holding on, showing that control, and being able to be that last one standing. That's what barbarians are all about. And a really cool way that we can also do this is to give them moments of restraint. Because while it's cool to have our barbarians be this unstoppable force and immovable object at the same time, giving them time to also recognize that sometimes raging isn't the correct call. This is a bit harder because this is reliant on our players recognizing that sometimes raging is not the best course of action, and that is showing restraint in the class. This is the chance for our characters to show character growth. This is the opportunity for the barbarian to show that not only are they strong enough to be able to handle most situations, but they have the restraint and the intelligence to know when is the best time to utilize it. When we get the perfect blend of those two put together into our campaigns, it is chef's kiss beauty for the barbarian. Because they are calm, they are cool, they are collected, they are ready, and then the moment that that penny drops, boom, it's go time, they're ready to hit the floor, and all will start running in the wake of this barbarian's rage. Because rage always feels more powerful when it is the player's choice. But now it's time to talk about common pitfalls for DMs when running barbarians, because I see these a couple of times, and it's really fairly obvious. First of all, treating them like they are walking hit pool tanks. That's not the case. Yes, they have a lot. Yes, they are built around taking damage, but don't just throw absolutely everything at them. They are very much mortal. They can take damage, and throwing absolutely everything at them all of the time is just a bit unfair. Yes, we are, at that point, essentially bullying the player because they've chosen to be the tank, which no one wants. You never want to bully one of your players for picking a class and playing the class how the class is intended. Now, the other couple of things, never punish ragers too much. Like, I get it. Barbarians raging can sometimes be a little bit problematic depending on where they choose to rage. Like, you can't just have a barbarian rage, pick up a person's vending car, chuck it at opponents, and then not expect any repercussions. Like, that's just ridiculous. But at the same time, don't do it all of the time, if you get what I mean. Like, yes, there need to be repercussions to their actions depending on where they rage and what they do when they rage. That's fine, especially in society. Sometimes people are going to be a bit terrified when they see a person manage to disembowel another person. That just happens, you know? But not all the time. Sometimes just let them have the fun of the chaos and the anger of rage. It's so beautiful when you get to see it, and it's so fun, and so fun for the players as well to let them go buck wild and just let loose. Because when we design around rages, we can also at the same time design around physical challenges. Because yes, we always think about the mental challenges, the magical challenges, the challenges for our wizards, our rogues, all of that stuff. But let's not forget that physical challenges are very much a thing as well. And I get it, fighters, barbarians, they exist. We know who's going to do them. Yeah, of course we do. They can still lose those challenges. They can still 100% fail in those moments. And if anything, making it so there are those possibilities of them failing and building encounters around that is beautiful. So don't just plan for our magically inclined and mentally inclined players, plan for our physically inclined players as well. Let them be the ones to try and jump over a giant ravine, to knock over a tree, to turn it into a bridge. Like, have them be the ones to climb up a mountain, to then place down a rope and help carry up the party. Give them those challenges. Give them the points to show off their strength. Let them flourish and thrive being that Adonis, that powerful character, because it makes it so much more impactful when then something comes along and smacks them down. Because, yeah, that's incredibly powerful. And it doesn't just need to be through intelligence. That's another pitfall. Making our challenges to our barbarians have to be about intelligence versus strength. No. Like, yes, these characters may not have the highest intelligence score, but barbarians aren't dumb. In fact, more often than not, they can be super smart. we naturally end up thinking if a person ends up having low intelligence scores, it means that they aren't going to be able to roleplay this character too well. Because they're going to be like, oh, wait, I have to roleplay them as dumb. No, you don't. Like, intelligence is such a unique trait, being that you can be incredibly smart, but you can also be incredibly dumb at the same time. Like, yeah, you might have an intelligence of 20. You might understand the cosmos. But you still kind of forget that at the end of the day, you are still a squishy wizard, and brick to your face hurts. Now, that's a dumb response, but the concept behind it is so true. Being incredibly intelligent does not mean that you are infallible, does not mean that you cannot just sometimes forget the obvious. Sometimes when you are too smart, you will think about all of the ridiculous over-the-top approaches to a problem, completely forgetting the most simplistic and most obvious. And really, a barbarian thrives with that idea. Sometimes just letting our barbarian players show off that they are intelligent, they are smart, they're just not book smart, academic smart, not street smart, because where they're smart, people don't normally travel, because if they do, then they don't talk about it, because it's how you survive. It's being able to thrive in those environments, because if you don't thrive in those environments, you die. That's the strength of a barbarian. They don't have to be smart, they needed to survive. That was their entire important MO. So yeah, you could have an incredibly smart wizard. Doesn't mean that they would survive out in the wilderness. And that's some of the core pitfalls as a DM, is just painting these characters in lights that just don't make sense. Give them the exact opposites, which is also our pro tips, starting off with rages. Now, don't get me wrong. Having the classic, I would like to rage, is fun. It's always good. It's very enjoyable. But a good way to handle it as a dungeon master is to narratively describe that rage. What does it feel like? Visceral reactions. It's the veins popping out, the strength growing from within, the muscles stretching beyond capability. It's the tension you feel in the air, the electricity practically radiating off of them, along with heat and a little bit of fear just spreading across people. Having that moment as a dungeon master to describe what our character's rage feels like is so impactful and will really help them get into that zone. And another important tip is to pay attention to the subclasses. Now, I haven't gone over subclasses in this video because this is already long enough, but Barbarian subclasses really tie together unique parts of the world. Ancestral spirits, elemental guardians, primal forces. Barbarians tie these parts of our world to the party so beautifully, and paying attention to those ties, those connections, will really help make our barbarians shine in our campaigns. And another way to make them shine is to make terrain and environments matter in our combat. Barbarians work great when they have stuff to bounce off of. Give them pillars, stalagmites, stalactites, rocks, boulders, rivers, lots of cool terrain and physical stakes going on, because the barbarians thrive off of that. They love the combat. So the more impactful you make your combat scenarios, the more impactful those barbarian players are going to be. And finally, rages need to have some consequences, but not always punishments. What do I mean by this is, yes, of course, you can end up having the, oh, I accidentally end up hurting my friends through my rage, but it's also a case of these can have strong story impactful moments, not just at the end of the campaign. It's consequences to the rage, right? It could be the case that because our character raged in the middle of the street, suddenly a person who was going to go against the party no longer wants to. They want to live. They want to, not be put into the ground by the barbarian. So you know what? They're going to help out the party. They're going to reveal some secrets. Or maybe it's a case of because the Barbarian rage, they were able to get everyone's attention and be able to escort people out of a fire. Rage can be very beneficial when you look at it not just as a creation of fear, but as a creation of a focal point. It is strength in so many senses of the word. And so when we build our encounters and our worlds around this idea, around what the Barbarian is meant to embody, it can be beautiful. And that is why I love Barbarians. They aren't just mindless violence. They are raw savagery, physicality, the embodiment of survival in its truest extent. It's Darwinism taken to its extreme and done so well. There are so many different ways that our players can play Barbarians. I'm always interested in seeing what my players come up with whenever they choose to be a Barbarian. Personally, I've got a Barbarian set up and ready to go at a moment's notice if I ever end up getting invited to another campaign to play, and it is going to be an intelligent, charismatic Barbarian. The entire idea behind it is going to be the Barbarian that challenges society. It's going to be around the flavor of you don't understand what it's like to be out in nature, to be part of nature. You just take. That's what modern society does. And I am here to stand against that. That's what my Barbarian is going to be. And I always love seeing what other people set as their Barbarians. So what is the Barbarians that you've seen in your games? What do you think about them? Why do you like the class? What do you enjoy about the beauty of Barbarians? Please write it down in the comments. And my friends, if you like this video, please do give this thing a like. If you want to see more of this stuff, please do hit the subscribe button because I am making a video for each and every single one of the classes. That's right. Going to just lose my mind making these things because, oh boy, I don't even know how long this video is at this point, but we will see. And finally, couple of things. Again, write stuff down in the comments, appreciate that. Give this thing a share. Make sure to hit that notification bell to keep up to date. And also, I have a Patreon. That's right, there's nothing on it right now. But if you do sign up on the Patreon, I will make sure to give a shout out to you at the end of these videos and every video going forward, so long as you have a Patreon account. That's right. So, either way, I hope you have a good time, my friends. Let me know what class you want to see next. And I hope you have a good one. I'll see you all again very soon. And in the meantime, bye-bye.